Hi, and welcome back to Creating a Consistent Brand. This is Lesson 2, Brand Standards. Brand standards are a combination of stories, expectations, relationships that you've built with your audience that makes the consumer choose you over someone else. Now, your brand standards are really important in helping you stand out because this is how people will connect to you and recognize you above all the other sellers in your niche. So let's talk about what we're going to discuss today with brand standards. We will be going over colors, fonts, logos, and brand rules. All of these combined together will make your brand standards. And your brand standards are a consistency that your consumers can count on seeing and recognize you easily. It's going to help you stand out. Now, here's our brilliant branding blueprint. You can see that in the previous lesson, we discussed who is your audience and what is your mission statement. Today, we're going over brand standards. And in the following lessons, we'll go over these different sections and categories. Let's go over this brilliant bit of info. Brand is the sum total of how someone perceives a particular organization. Branding is about shaping that perception. So when you're creating your branding, this is how you're going to shape people perceive you and look at you. This is how they are going to recognize you as a business. The first step in choosing your brand standards is defining your colors. And I want you to choose colors you love. And that sounds really basic and easy, but sometimes it's not. I'm going to tell you a really expensive story. So when I chose my logo for TPT, a little while later, I decided I needed to branch out and I needed to have more fonts, colors, a better consistency with my brand. So I found a designer who was going to design my logo and my blog and use fonts and colors to tie it all together. So I gave her my fonts that I liked and colors that I liked, and I said, here, I want you to create a brand for me and the logos. And she did a great job. I actually really love my logo. I think it really connects with my audience, but I did not love the colors. I didn't spend a lot of time researching. These were the colors I gave her, and I hate them. I don't like that bright orange, yellow, green color. I don't think it goes well with everything. I love the light bulb coming out of the plant. For my tagline, inspiring ideas for elementary educators, I thought that really emphasized that image that I wanted to convey to my audience. However, the colors were horrible, but I had already spent so much money that I decided to stick with it. And I only stuck with it for a couple months before I bit the bullet, and I went ahead and recolored my whole brand. And this is what she gave back to me, and I love it. And I love the colors, and I've used it for several years now. The colors really relate to me as a person. Now, when you're trying to choose your colors, I want you to look in your house. I want you to look in your wardrobe, and if you have a classroom, in your classroom, and look at the colors you're using there, because those are colors you probably already love because you chose to wear them or put them in your house. So look around you to find colors that you enjoy. Now, here are the tab colors for Teacher Author Brilliance. I spent hours looking at colors, and the funny thing is I ended up choosing colors very similar to my Teresa Kwant business. But that just reaffirmed to me that the colors I chose are really colors that represent me as a person and that I can use as a brand because I like those colors. So this is what I chose for tab. They're a little different, but they're very similar and I love them. And I chose different logo sizes and styles to go in all the different formats that I would need. Now, when choosing your colors, there are some websites that I like to use that help you find the colors and look at the palettes and see how they go together. So let's look at those real quick. I really like this site because it's a fun way to see your colors and they put a bunch of palettes together for you. So you can look at the trending palettes here and scroll through. You can spend probably hours looking at all the different color palettes and marking some as your favorite. But then they also have the Explore palette and the palette generator. In fact, the palette generator is a fun way to create your own color palette. What you do is you can hit the space bar and it will change the color palette. If you were to upgrade to Pro, you could get rid of these ads, but that's not necessary. We're just looking at colors. So I'm going to hit the space bar and I'm going to find a color palette that speaks to me and that I really like. And you can go through again, probably spending hours looking at all the different color palettes. Let's say we choose a palette and we decide that we want to mess around with some of the colors. Well, that's what's great here is you can view the different shades of this color and then you can change it and you end up recreating a completely different color palette for your brand. But maybe finding something you like even more than the one that was shown. And you can even rearrange the colors to see how they fit and where they go well together. Another great color picker that you can use is just on Canva. And I love this option because you can upload your own image and it will grab colors from that image for you. Or you can try their demo image and just click through all the demo pictures that they have and they'll pull colors from that image. So that's actually a lot of fun because you can find images that you really like online or that you have on your computer and upload them and see what colors you like from that image. Another great tool for finding colors for your brand is just the Adobe Color Wheel. This one's really fun and interactive too. You could really spend hours choosing colors, and it's actually really hard to choose what you want your colors to be, but it's important because if you don't like it, you're not going to love your brand. So you just move these circles around here, and it will change. You can see you have the palette up in the corner and at the bottom, and you can choose one color at a time to change around. You can say you want a monochromatic color palette and move these around to find a color you like. The triad's fun, and what's great is you know that the colors they're choosing are complementary of each other and often go well together. That's sometimes the hardest part in choosing good colors for your brand. So go ahead and give these tools a try when finding the colors you want to use for your brand. The next thing you need to do is define your font choices. Choose 1 to 2 personality fonts, and these are fun fonts. They might be a little more fancy than just a basic readable font. They bring more personality and they should contrast well with each other. For example, you might have a script in a readable font, like Teacher-Author Brilliance. This is a great script font that goes with the bold font. Now, I wouldn't use either one of these fonts as my basic reading font that I would have all across social media, but I might use it for headers or for words to stand out on images or in projects that I'm working on. You might try a fancy font with a thin font. Both of those go well together. They're all easy to read. Then you want a basic font that is simple and easy to read again so that you can use it for your brand and use it more often. So for Teacher-Author Brilliance, I use the KA School Days, and that's what you see in this presentation as the main font that I'm using, but you can see these other fonts I'm using as headers or to add just some personality to the pages. Let's explore some other fun font combinations. These are all Kimberly Guesswin fonts that can be found on TPT. If you use them for personal use, her fonts are free. But if you use them commercially or for your business, you're going to need to pay for them, but they're only about $5 a font. So it's a great deal, especially if you only need a few. And if you're going to use it often, these fonts are a great investment. So this is just giving you examples of ways you can combine fonts and make them look nice together. You want to make sure they complement each other and that you don't have 2 really busy fonts together. You want to have maybe one that stands out and one that's a little more fancy. I love to put script fonts together with regular bold fonts. That's one of my favorite font combinations, but find some that work for you. What's great about these bottom fonts is they are 2 very similar, maybe even same fonts, but one of them has lines going through it and is a little fancier. When it comes to font choices for your brand, don't make the text too small. Make sure it's easy to read and nothing too fancy, and don't use too many fonts. So when you're creating your logo, make sure it's really easy to read because you want people to be able to recognize your logo and your brand instantly. And less is more. When you're choosing fonts, I wouldn't use more than 3 fonts for your brand. And you want to have enough contrast between your fonts in the background of your logos and the things that you're creating that it's easy to read. And like we said, you want it to be recognizable. Okay. Here are some logo quick tips. You want to remember that less is more. Think of those big brands that everyone knows. Nike, McDonald's, Apple. They don't overcomplicate their logo. It's very easy to see and recognize. You also want to incorporate your colors and fonts and create a logo that connects with your audience. Since we're teachers in education, you want your logo to connect to teachers. I love my logo for Teresa Kwant that has the light bulb that's growing out of a plant because I think it really shows creating knowledge and new ideas. You don't want to create a logo if you're an educator that has a dog in it or that has mountains in it or something that doesn't connect with your educators unless it goes with your name and flows with education. But you want it to really connect with who you're speaking to. I'm not saying that mountains or dogs are bad. And in fact, you could probably find a way to connect that to your audience, but just make sure that connection is clear. You can find someone to design your logo for you, like a graphic designer or a place like Fiverr. Just ask around. There's a lot of good places to find logo designers. And then you want to create a variety of designs and styles for your logo, whether that's square and circle and rectangle, one with your picture, black and white ones, transparent ones. You can see for Teacher Author Brilliance, I have circle ones in both color and black and white. I have colored rectangle ones, and I have colored and black square ones, as well as one with my picture and logo on it. The next thing you need to do when defining your brand standards is define your rules. These are how you want your brand to be seen to your audience. There are 6 essential elements of any brand, and these are what you need to create your brand standards around. You want to have a brand story. This is how you started and how people can connect to you as a business. You need a logo. This is how people will recognize you. Color palette. This is how you are going to label all of your products. When we get into the cover creation section of this course, you're going to see how you're going to use your colors and your fonts to tie together all of your products in your store on TPT. How would you use imagery in your brand? Are you using photos in action? And then your voice. Your voice is how you are heard and how your audience hears you. So are you more of a witty, funny brand? Are you more of an inspirational and concrete brand? You need to think of your own personality and how you can connect with your audience. If you're being mainly inspirational and just helping your audience, and then all of a sudden you throw in something funny that doesn't connect with them, they may not like that and they might not follow you anymore. You need to create a voice that is consistent with you and that speaks to your brand. Things to include in your brand style guide. You want to make sure you have a mission statement. You're going to create this style guide that includes everything about your brand and who you are so you can share it with when you eventually have virtual assistants so they know how to use and show your brand. A brand style guide is also great for you because you know what to follow and you know the rules and it can help you stay consistent. You also want your tagline. You want to show how to properly use your logo and give examples of that in your style guide, in your do's and don'ts. I'm going to show you my style guide here in a minute, so don't worry. You also want to show your minimum logo size. You don't want it so teeny that no one can see it. You want to make sure that when your logo is somewhere, it's easy to read and easy to see. You want to show acceptable color variations. There are certain ways I don't want my colors used. When I am making a quote or graphic, I want one branding color and either black or white lettering on top. I don't want a color as my background and then a different color in the writing, only black and white writing. So you need to make these color variations clear in your style guide to help with consistency. You want to include your color palette and all the RGB and hex codes so people can use the exact right colors. You want to include the color combinations you want to stick with and outline your font sizes and when and how to use them. Because when you're creating an image, there are certain fonts you may or may not want to use. You want to make sure the fonts are easy to read. And if you want certain words to stand out, you might want certain fonts used. And then you have your easy to read font that you want to make sure is used the most. You also want to explain the hierarchy of your fonts, when and how to use them, and outline your brand's voices, do's and don'ts. So like the grammar you want, the spelling, your tone. You want to make sure that your voice clearly represents you as a person and as a brand. Specify if there are certain words to use often or not use at all. I have certain words and phrases I don't want used in my brand, and so I specify that in my style guide. Explain how images and photos should be used. So here's my brand style guide. It's just an infographic I created in Canva, and later on in the course, we will learn how to use Canva. But I include in the style guide my mission statement, my logos. If I have black or dark backgrounds, these are the logos I want used on top. If it's a lighter background or white, these are the logos to use. And then I explain and go into detail how and when to use the logos. I have my colors and their codes here so that people can quickly get those colors that they need. I have my fonts and I give examples of when to use them, and I give examples of imagery. You can see it's really quick and easy. I don't need to make it super detailed. You can make it as detailed as you want though to help your brand stand out. Then I use all of these rules from my style guide to create my imagery for social media and anywhere else my brand is sticking out to my audience. Defining your brand rules. As you start creating content, use this checklist to make sure your brand is staying on point. Did you use your brand colors? Did I use the correct fonts? Is my logo clearly seen? Is my message connected to who I am as a brand? That's important. When you're on social media, you want to make sure you're talking about your niche and staying on brand and not veering off to something that doesn't connect with who you are as a niche and a brand. Does your content match your niche? Getting your brand standards set can be an exciting part of starting your business. It can take a lot of time, but if you put in the time and effort up front, it will pay off tenfold in the future because your audience is going to know how to connect to you and they're going to know how to recognize you. So get your brand standards set, make sure that they align with your niche, and you'll be ready to go.